Beat Making Basics.
What's good, YouTube? Beat Making Basics back again with another dope video. If you're new to the channel, go ahead and subscribe because we're coming back to back with bangers. Now, today's video, we're going to be showing you how to mix a hip hop beat in Logic Pro 10. Now, the first step, I'm just going to go ahead and create a audio track, okay? And then from here, I'm going to go to my computer, to my Finder, and I have a hard drive that has my beats on it. So I'm going to go to my hip hop beats, and we're gonna drag one of these in here, okay? Let's see what would probably be a good one. Let's do this Brag a Lot beat right here, all right? So I'm just gonna drag all of these audio files in, all right? That's gonna be your first step here. Yes, you can mix with MIDI files, but it's gonna be a whole lot easier and a whole lot smoother far as you're on your piano and plugins, not piano but with your DAW if you use audio compared to MIDI. But anyway, once you get your audio files in, the next step is go ahead and set that BPM. This is at 75, so we'll set that BPM. Alright, and then you're going to want to go over here to the very end of the track, okay? See how it's all this dead space? Always do this before you start. Just take this over here to the end. And I actually need to pull it out some. Alright, cool. So once you got that going, the next thing I would recommend doing is organizing the mix, okay? So either put your drums at top or your drums at bottom, but I usually like to put my drums at top, so I'll just do like, put that kick up here, the snares, hi-hats, tom fills, cymbals, and I do typically put that bass up at top as well. And then here we go, we got our samples right here. So after you organize everything, the next thing would be to just come to wherever your hook is, and the hook is just going to be the part that has the majority part of the beat. Looks like I have a hook here because it's like a kind of an intro hook going on here, but I think the hooks are really going on where we see both sample parts in here. So I'm gonna go to 25 all the way to bar 33, and as you can just look at the wave files, you can see, all right, it has most of the stuff in here. And from here, now we're gonna do something called leveling. So I'm just gonna actually start working on getting all of the levels. And during this phase, we're pretty much just balancing everything, making sure that certain instruments are not too loud or too low in the mix, just balancing it all out. Now, most people are gonna tell you start with the kick, which you should, it should be one of the first instruments that you are gonna mix, but I'm actually gonna start with the melody and then bring the kick into that with the bass. So let's go ahead and start with bringing up this sample here. All right, and I'm gonna bring up this second one. And then I'm just gonna use the kick and the bass. I want the kick and the bass to sound super punchy and dope coming in here. I'm not going to necessarily pay attention to the actual levels, but the actual sound. So I'm mixing with my ears compared to looking at the different meters. So I'm going to pull this kick up. And so just like when I was pulling this kick up, when I pulled it up too high, I did hear some static. I did hear a little bit of fuzz or whatever, so I just scaled it back some and everything like that. I'm gonna turn some of these melodies down because I want that kick to punch pretty hard. So it's really important to get those drums smacking. You don't want your melody to be overtaking the drums at all. So just kind of getting that proper balance. Let's go ahead and start working on bringing up some of these other instruments. I'm gonna bring up the snare. All right, cool. So I feel like I can hear the drums pretty well. I can hear everything pretty solid in the mix. Next thing I'm going to go ahead and do is actually group some of these instrument sounds together, and we're going to send them to an auxiliary, or bounce them or bust them, excuse me, to an auxiliary track. So I'm going to take like my drums, okay? We'll just go ahead and from the output, go to the bus and pick an available bus. Since we're just getting started, there's lots of available buses, and I think this actual rise should be in here as well. From here, let's go ahead and do the melody, and we could pretty much just leave the bass alone. So we at least have the drums and we have the melody right here. And what this is going to do now is give us more control over the overall volume of all of these different elements. So for instance, say if the melody is like overshadowing the drums a little bit, instead of coming over here and turning each one down, I can just turn this aux track down. All right, cool. So I feel like we have a pretty good balance where you could hear the drums punching through the mix good enough, but also still hear the melody. Now let's go ahead and do something called subtractive EQing. Basically, I'm going to be taking some of the lows out of different instrument sounds to make room for the lows of prominent instrument sounds. Let's talk about what we're saying here, or let me explain what I mean. Like for instance, with this kick, this has certain frequencies that are going to come in pretty tough. So if I push play, just look at the frequency range. So basically, we got a lot of low end, basically between 250 and below. So 20 hertz to 250. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of low end, and really all the way up here to the 500s. You want to make some room for that low end of this kick, and same thing with this bass. If you really look over here again, everything below that 250 range for the most part is going to be clouding up this bass or this kick. So what we'll come over here and do is we'll go to one of our melody tracks, and I'll just take out about everything below 250. If I do that on both of those tracks, it should clean up the mix some. So let's listen to it. So you can also do subtractive EQing on your drum sounds as well. Some sounds that I would recommend doing it on would be like your snare. So we can put something on the snare. We don't want to cut out too much because sometimes it can end up making those instruments sound flat. So we'll play around with about the 250, 200 range. Okay, and so really, we want to take the sounds that have the low end coming in through a lot. If I was to turn this off, you would see. So basically, we're giving some space in that in the EQ for some of the other instruments. You don't necessarily have to put this on all of the different tracks, but mainly the stuff that's going to be bringing in a whole lot of extra low end. So one thing that you can do, you don't have to do this, but I would say just come over here and put this on a lot of the tracks here. But turn it down, make sure it's not taking out too much of the body of the tracks. All right, bet. So now that we have that done, let's go ahead and do some basic EQing. I'm not EQing, but panning. So this is basically going to be turning some of the tracks to the left or the right. Some of the stuff that we would leave dead center would be like your kick, your bass, your snare, you know, and most of the time. So like everything else could be moved to the left or right. So we'll just put these hats, put those over here. This fill, we'll put it to the left. Put that right there. Let's see how that sounds. And this is why you also want to go ahead and run through everything a couple of times. I noticed that on these toms or this fill right here, I took out a little bit too much on this because it's literally affecting some of the overall sound. So now, after listening to it a few times, I feel like the mix is pretty solid. Now, there's some other things we can do to make certain parts stand out in the mix. One thing is to actually go ahead and add some reverb to certain things. And that's going to just make it, you know, add a little spice here. Instead of adding the reverb directly onto the audio effects, let's put them onto the sends. Let's try go ahead and put in some type of reverb directly onto one of the sample tracks. All right, so we're basically using the sending the signal really from this auxiliary track over here, and we're gonna turn it up here. So I'm gonna put a reverb on here. And actually I'm gonna do this Valhalla room. And then I'll start pulling this up just a little bit until we start hearing that. So what I'll do is just pull the reverb up here a whole lot just so I can overly hear it, and then we'll start like scaling it back some. All right, so we have a little bit of reverb on here. Just gonna add a little spice to this. I'm actually gonna put an EQ on this as well, and just take out some of the lows right around here to that 250 and below. So, and that's pretty much gonna make sure it's not too muddy. From here, we could play around with do like side chaining this bass and making like sure like, you know, it dips a little bit every time that like the kick comes through. So what I could do is go to the audio effects directly on the bass track and just pick any compressor. This is fine, okay, and we can go to side chain right here and audio, and then go to my kick. All right, and then I can come over here and we can just listen to it and affect some of these or change some of these settings here to get the right vibe. And pretty much what I did here is I turned the ratio down, as you saw. The ratio means that it's gonna basically be a certain level of or amount of the compressor being used compared to, you know, say if I put this up to like 13, 15, it means it's a lot of the compressor is gonna be used compared to this. A little bit of the compressor is gonna be used or whatever. Anyway, turn the threshold down some. That was gonna boost it up a little bit. And as you saw or heard when I was originally doing this, I started off doing it like exaggerating the effect just so I can hear it, and then I scaled back with the actual ratio. We also took the attack down. Attack is like how fast it's going to actually be applied, and so you just want to have a slight good like balance between the bass and the kick. You don't want the bass to sound like it's just completely cutting out, but you want it to just dip some. So let's listen to it again. All right, so that's there. I feel like that's pretty much good enough. I can also come over here though and add the RBass plugin by Waves, and what that's going to do is boost this signal. Excuse me, boost the signal, make it sound like more bassier. Jesus, come on, yeah, plug that on up. And then what I'll do is I'll put this compressor after that. from here, we can decide if we want to like boost any of the frequencies with compression. A lot of times I try to do it just basically using the levels. But what I'll do is I'll turn this down just a little bit, slide like that. And we want it to not peak right here. So we can turn this down significantly to where, it's not peaking over like 3 dB, or excuse me, negative 3 dB. And then we'll also, one of my favorite plugins is called MV2. It's a compressor. I'm gonna put this on the actual auxiliary track for the melody. So let's go up here. This is just gonna make that sound, the melody pop out in the mix a little more. All right, then final touches, you could just start listening to this beat like on different speakers, different environments. One quick way to do that is use other plugins. So what I can do is put my headphones on and use a couple of plugins here. One will be this Ocean Way by plugin right here, NX Ocean Way plugin. And it's supposed to simulate being in a big boy studio. All right, so we'll turn this off. I'll put my headphones on. We're gonna listen to the mix, just see if there's anything that's like completely off. So let's check it out. So the kick is not hitting as strong as I would like it to. One thing we can do is come over here and add the Smack Attack plugin to that. And if you want like a subtle punch on there, we can just turn this attack up and the sustain down some. Always make sure after you listen to the beat with the plugin, you turn the plugin off afterwards, because obviously this is just there to listen to it, not to actually put it out. So it's like used as an A/B reference type thing. There's another plugin by Rocket Power Sound. It's called Car Test. Kind of can save you a step of having to bounce down the track as a wave or audio or MP3 file and then go to your car and listen to it in there. So let's just see how it sounds. then the last thing you can do is just take the headphones off and then turn your monitor down, okay, and use the digital audio interface. Just turn the main knob down some, almost to the point where you can't hear it, but you want to listen to it at a very low level. And I found that listening to it at low levels definitely helps with the actual balancing and leveling of the beat. You can like hear better, like if something is too high or too low, you can like kind of hear it better. But anyway, I hope you like these tips and this tutorial. If you do, make sure you go ahead and smash the like button. Go ahead and hit subscribe if you're not already subscribed to the channel. And make sure you go to our site, beatmakingbasics.com. Links are in the description below. You can get courses, kits, one-on-one beat making lessons. A whole lot of cool stuff is on the site. Appreciate y'all watching, and I'll see you in the next video.